I've heard many Americans declare that the President of the United States is not their president. I'm Canadian, and I've heard Canadians talk about our Prime Minister, and they say, he's not my Prime Minister. Well, the Bible says that Jesus is King. The question I have for you today, is Jesus your King? Hello everybody, this is Pastor Lyle and welcome to Daily Renewal. We're going to be starting a new series this week. I want to encourage you, if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing to our channel. You can get all the back videos on the different subjects that we cover. And we try to do this Monday to Friday. That way people have an opportunity for all of the weekdays. If you're hungry for God, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you can get something daily. That's why we call it Daily Renewal. Well, today we're going to be starting a new series, and the title of it is Jesus is King. So to start off today, I want to relay the fact that after pastoring for many years, many Christians would quickly say and admit that Jesus is their King. But I've come to notice that in my own life, for most of my life, especially before I was a Christian, I'll tell you who the king of my life was. Me. I was on the throne. Everything that I did was because I was making decisions that benefited mostly me. Even if I did things for other people, often it came down to I was making decisions based on my own intellect, based on my own thinking, based on what made me feel good. So the idea of giving up that kind of control to somebody else isn't something that people do easily. And in fact, when you look at a lot of people in our culture today, there's many people that buck against the idea of having any kind of authority above them, whether it's at your workplace, whether it's a parental figure, whether it's figures in society that have some kind of authority, whether it's police officers or teachers. Often we find ourselves not wanting to give control over our lives in any way, shape, or form. So the idea of allowing somebody else to be the king in our life isn't something that comes natural to us. And often we fight against it. So it's with that in mind that I want to challenge us to not just quickly say, oh, Jesus is my king. We've established that Jesus is the king. But now in these coming sessions, the idea that I want to put forth to you is to examine your own life and you decide whether you've actually allowed him to be the king of your life according to how he has desired and set up for him to be your king. So let's look at this idea of Jesus being the king. And if he's a king, then he has a kingdom. And so we have to understand that as we look at this idea of king and kingdom, that there is principles that apply to us as a result of receiving him as our king. And the first thing that I want to deal with today is the topic of obedience. You know, the idea of having Jesus as our king, we have to understand that even though we're living in New Testament times, every king has a set of regulations or a way that he desires for his members of the kingdom to walk in. The king isn't ever portrayed as somebody who just is eagerly waiting to hear and get all the advice from all the people in the kingdom on how to run the kingdom. No, the king is the one in charge, and there's requirements and ways that he wants the people that are under his rule and reign to walk and to live. And, often in Christianity today, right there's a lot of people that go, well, I don't know if I want to do that. But see, we have to understand that the idea of a kingdom doesn't mean that we could just live any way that we want. God has requirements for his loyal subjects, and it's for their benefit because God is a good and just king. He wants the best for his subjects, but as a result, there is an order that we need and that he's designed for us to walk in so that we can receive the benefits of the kingdom and of having him as king. You know, it's very easy for us as Christians to say, you know what, I'm so glad that Jesus is my king because the king provides protection. He provides all the benefits of the kingdom. He takes care of me. And there's so many great benefits to being part of Jesus' kingdom. But I also find that for many people, myself included, there's times where the king requires things of me that are a real challenge. And it's at those times where you will really come to understand, really come to know whether you are still on the throne of your life or whether you really do believe and accept the fact that Jesus is your king. You know, in the book of 1 John, it says this in 1 John chapter 5, starting in verse 1, it says, "Whoever believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God, and everyone who loves him, who begot, also loves him, who is begotten of him. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome." So the first thing that we see is if we really love God, if he's really our king, we will love to keep his commandments. And they won't be burdensome to us. But I'll tell you that I've noticed at times, just like the apostles noticed at times, Peter, when confronted by Jesus near the end of his life, there's times where there's this conflict that goes on still, where we have to make the decision. Am I going to retake the throne of my life, or am I going to continue to allow Jesus to be king? You know, this idea of following him and giving over the leadership of our life, it's not easy at times. His commandments are challenging at times, challenged to be a burden. But this is where we know, do we serve God because we have a revelation of who Jesus is? Or do we do it just because of the benefits we receive from him? And don't get me wrong, there's lots of benefits. But there's coming times in this day and age that as you get closer to God, you're going to be challenged on whether you're going to be king in your life or whether Jesus is going to be king. We see a great story in the Old Testament. In 1 Samuel 15, starting in verse 22, it's talking about King Saul. And what happened is that God had certain requirements, and he asked Saul to carry out a specific task. And Saul, because he was afraid of the people, what he did is he carried out a task that looked really good and really spiritual, but he didn't carry out the task the way God wanted it to be carried out. And he was confronted by Samuel because Samuel knew that he did not carry out the task the way it was supposed to be carried out. And this is Samuel's response to Saul. In verse 22, he says, "Has the Lord a great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams." Now, the principle here that we have to understand is God is looking for people that are going to be obedient to him. We have to remember, he's not just a king, he's the king. He's the king that knows all the thoughts and intents of your heart. He's the king who's seen the beginning and the end. He's the king who knows all. And so when he talks to us, and when he speaks to us to do something, he is requiring us to respond accordingly as a loyal subject would respond. And this is not always easy. But what we see here was King Saul tried to cover up being obedient to God by doing something that was a sacrifice to God because he didn't want to be obedient. He wanted to do it his own way. And the first thing that we need to understand in the idea of Jesus being our king is we have to make the solid decision that even when it hurts, I want to be obedient to him. I don't want to do it my own way. I don't want to be on the throne of my life. And we see all through the Old Testament, through the Psalms, we see David as a king, a man who knew, he knew what it was like to have authority over all of Israel. And yet many times he understood, and we probably talk about a lot of those times even this week, where even though he was a man of authority, he understood that if he was truly going to operate in what he was given, he was going to have to give up who he was and allow Jesus to be king in his life. So before I started this series, one of the things that I felt God spoke to me fairly clear, is if Jesus is going to be your king, we need to do an inventory of things in our life. And I want to challenge you with this today. Look at your life. Is there some things that God has asked you to do that maybe you've been slow in doing? Maybe there's things that he's asked you to do, and maybe you've found other ways to just say, well, Lord, I don't really feel like doing that, but I'll do this. When we make the decision to go in our own way, we'll always find that there's areas of our life that remain empty. The reason the Lord is asking for your obedience, the reason he's asking you to do some of the things that he's asked you to do, is there is a plan and a purpose, and it's for the furtherance of his kingdom. But when his kingdom moves forward and he uses us to do it, there will always be a fulfillment for us. What I'm doing today, this Daily Renewal YouTube channel, this is something that in my own life, I really didn't want to do. I didn't want to do it because for me, I'm not very tech savvy. Up until a few years ago, I had some good people around me that he would even send emails for me because I wasn't confident in doing stuff like that. And some people that know me now, they hear I'm editing my own videos. They say, that's a small miracle. There's no way that Pastor Lyle could do that. And in my own strength, there's many things involving even starting a YouTube channel that I said, there's no way. I don't feel right about doing this. I had my own questions about, do I want to do that? Because I know a lot of people, they start things like this. They want to put their stuff online because, they want to gain notoriety or fame. And in my own heart, with some of the things that I've gone through in my own life and ministry, the one thing that I felt God was working on in my life was I didn't want to walk in any pride in my life. I didn't want to be a human highlight reel. And so to start a YouTube channel, I thought, am I doing this? Would I be doing it because I want to be heard? And then when the Lord began to speak to me and showed me that if I really want to reach people, that this is one way that you can help people in their daily walk with Jesus. The greatest opportunity in the history of mankind to be able to give opportunity to discipleship people and reach people is via the internet. These videos could go all around the world. And that couldn't happen for thousands of years up until now. And God began to put it on my heart, contrary to everything inside me that just didn't want to do it. I wasn't qualified enough. There was so many things I was battling against starting this YouTube page. And I'm going to tell you that once I made the decision to be obedient, in my own life, I'm a pastor. I preach every week. And for those of you that don't do that, there is a pressure in that because you want to hear from God. And so to do that every week, there's a bit of pressure in that. But then when I started doing Daily Renewal, and we try to do Monday to Friday, I realized not only do I edit videos every day, but I study for every day. We do messages. So all of this, it takes a long time to put these videos together. And I'm not complaining. But probably the biggest thing that's happened in my life is I've seen people that there's no way that I could have reached any other way, that God's giving me opportunity to do exactly what I want to do with my life, and that's preach the gospel to people. And I've managed to talk to people that I haven't talked to in years that are asking questions about God. People that are going to church that are asking questions about where they're at, even in their church walk, and what does church mean? But I'll say that, so I've had opportunity to help people. But I'll tell you what else it's done for me. In having the opportunity to get into God's Word and study it and allow Him to speak to my life, there's a renewed level even in my walk with God. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand. The idea of making Him king and walking in obedience. You're probably not going to be called to do the same thing as I do, and that's fine. But when you make a decision not to walk in obedience to what God's asked you to do, when he really is king in your life, you're going to find that he is going to do some things in your life. He's going to bring some life to some dead areas of your life that you maybe never even knew were dead areas. So to just say, Jesus is my king, but not to walk under the obedience of what he's asking you to do, you're missing out. And so in making him king today, my question for you, what's he asking you to do? Is there things that he's asked you to do that maybe you haven't responded in obedience to? I want to encourage you. Respond today. Don't just say he's king. If he's really king, you will want to do the things he's asked you to do, and they won't be burdensome to you. They might be burdensome right now, but as you take a step of faith and begin to walk in the things that he's called you to do, you're going to find it's going to bring life to you. And let's not forget, in John 10:10, Jesus came to give us life and to have it more abundantly. Walking in obedience is one of the keys to seeing abundant life unfold in your life. The abundance that Jesus has created you to walk in. Walk in obedience today. Is he your king? Well, I hope you got something out of that today. I hope you're encouraged. If you are, I want to encourage you, subscribe to our channel. We want to get the videos out to as many people as we can, to encourage as many people as we can. Helps if you hit the like button. That helps us distribute the videos more. It helps you be able to see some of the past videos that we have when you do become a subscriber. You can also like us on Facebook, and we're also on Twitter and Instagram as well. If you're in the Kamloops area, I want to encourage you to come by River City Church. We would love to have you. Having said that, God bless you, and have a great day.